There are many misconceptions about what perfectionism actually is and what it really looks like. It's sort of like the misconception that people who live with obsessive compulsive disorder have to have a neat and a tidy physical space. It's simplistic, it's inaccurate, and it was almost certainly not developed by a person who lives with OCD. No worries, because today I'm going to be talking about perfectionism, and yes, we're going to hear from an expert. Sit back, relax, and let's talk about perfectionism. Perfectionism is driven by the fear of being seen as incompetent, unworthy, or unsuccessful. It's not necessarily someone who is striving for excellence and to do well for any other reason other than fear. Perfectionism is about control. It's about controlling the things we have control over, controlling the things we sort of have control over, or perhaps have influence on, and then also trying to control the things that there's no way in the world that we could actually control them. But we're gonna try anyway. So a lot of the times, this is why people who are perfectionists, they struggle to delegate. They don't trust another person to do the work in the way that they would, or they're extremely critical of another person's work. Because of that, they end up being really high strung a lot of the times, with a lot on their plates or with a lot of anxiety in their brains. I feel like high strung is not ever used in a very nice way, but I'm just gonna say high strung to describe myself. Perfectionism isn't about everything. It's very personal and it's practiced selectively. In no means am I a perfectionist about every area and every little thing in my life. Some things, in fact, I probably should care more about and don't. Perfectionism is a mindset of choosiness. What someone wants to be perfect is not always the thing that you would think they would. And it's really about going to great lengths to try to accomplish what we see as perfect, not necessarily what anyone else would see that way. An example of that is perfectionism doesn't automatically mean my paper is going to be error-free, grammar perfectly correct, and like no spelling errors. If that's not within my selective perfectionism, I don't really care about that. Even though if to the outside eye, that's part of making something perfect, is it would be error-free, that might not actually be within my definition of perfect for that project or that thing. This is one of my favorites, and that is that perfectionists aren't always type A. A lot of the times we think of perfectionists as type A. So that means they have a to-do list, they're very organized, they're methodical, their time's planned out, but this is not always the case, because I was chatting with a friend and a fellow creative, and she was saying how basically she got okay grades, which for me as a perfectionist, I needed my grades to be a certain way. She got okay grades, and then she also said she always has a messy room, and there are other things that just like feel kind of messy, and yet she's constantly battling the impossibly high standards in her head, working herself up and having a lot of anxiety about other things that just aren't selected as grades or physical space. In other words, if you think you're not a perfectionist because you think you're type B, don't rule it out because of that. This is my hottest take of the entire video, and that is that perfectionism is possible. Again, perfectionism or making something perfect is a personal thing to me and what I see as this thing being perfect. I just touched my brush. It is possible for me to achieve all the criteria in a piece of work I do or a meal I cook that ticks all the boxes that I see as perfection. However, it's not sustainable. We can't go and strive for that perfection on everything we do, even though sometimes you feel you can attain it. It's not about if it's attainable or not. It's about, is it sustainable for me as a human and for like my levels of joy? No, the answer is no, it's not. Finally, perfectionism is not a mental illness. So while I talk about mental illness on my channel, perfectionism is not a mental illness, but a lot of the times it can be a trait or a symptom or a manifestation of a mental illness. And so what I mean by that is perfectionism is a big part of obsessive compulsive personality disorder, which I live with. It can be part of obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD. It can be a huge part of having anxiety, etc. Perfectionism instead is this way of thinking that capitalizes on our fear to seek control of everything we would like to control, even when that is not possible. As a person with OCPD, I find that perfectionism is me making sure I'm doing things in a certain or right way or order. For example, the perfectionism is in the process of the thing, not always the product. But overall, when people struggle with perfectionism, we are disappointed a lot because things are not in our control and we work so hard to make them so. Perfectionism holds us back. It doesn't get us further. That's Also, a myth that I would like to shout out to people who are watching this who are perfectionists. I'm telling you, perfectionism holds you back. It doesn't propel you forward no matter what you think. If you are achieving things, it is despite your perfectionism, not because of it. Perfectionism is not excellence. Perfectionism does not pay off, and it's not worth it. I would love to hear what you learned in this video, or if you live with perfectionism, what is another misconception that you can think of that I might have left out? A couple of videos I'm going to link in the description box. One is called Selective Perfectionism, and it's all about selective perfectionism. One is called The Problem with Quality Over Quantity for Perfectionists, and another is called 3 Tools to Help You Manage Your Perfectionism. I highly recommend checking those out. Also, you can check out my playlist called Obsessive Compulsive Personality Disorder. In all honesty, there is a combination of OCPD specific and just general perfectionism all in that playlist. I will see you in my next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.